Alright, so last week I visited Epic Universe, Orlando's first major new theme park in a long time, and I have a lot of thoughts. So in this video we're going to venture through the park counterclockwise, and on the way we'll discuss some of the most incredible rides in the world, some sort of bad ones, and decide this is the best park in Orlando. Ready? Let's go. Real quick, there will be some pretty intense spoilers for many of the attractions and lands in this park, including Battle for the Ministry and Monsters Unchained. If you want to avoid them, you should leave this video now. So when I first entered the Isle of Berk, I was shaken by just how beautiful this land is. That moment after walking through the portal and seeing Hiccup's welcome, those huge statues, and that giant rock at the end of the lake was just unforgettable. Of all the IP-based worlds, this one might be my favorite in terms of visuals and atmosphere, not only because of the grand facades and rockwork, but also because of the kinetic energy this land has as well. I was shocked by all the dragon animatronics across the land, and while some are pretty restricted in movement, others are beautifully fluid and all add a lot to the land. In addition to the animatronics, you also have the rides. Every ride in this land takes place outdoors, and they add even more energy to the world. But having all your rides in the land outside also means that if it rains, like it does almost every day in Orlando, there will be nothing to do. The entire park has this problem. Many of the rides are outside or include outdoor elements, so when it rains, the park essentially shuts down. At one point during a storm, I counted that there were only 3 rides open due to the storm and ride malfunctions, which this park is also plagued with. And I guess you could watch the 2 shows, but they only perform for a limited crowd at decently spread out times of the day, so if it rains and you can't make it indoors for a show, what else are you supposed to do? Stand outside and get wet? It's just strange that a theme park built in Central Florida would have so few attractions that can operate during the rain. But to be fair, when those attractions are running, they are a lot of fun. The weakest of the 3 is easily Dragon Racer's Rally. It's an incredibly short, flat ride with little theming, but still pretty enjoyable. The attraction has you spinning on this large arm thing, while also being placed into your own little carriage that you can roll with wings on the side of your seat. I got close, but I couldn't quite figure out how to execute a barrel roll. However, some people have done some pretty crazy things on this attraction. And even if you don't get a full roll in, it's a pretty fun ride. It does a great job of packing a pretty unique experience into a tight space, and if the line isn't too long, it's worth the wait. My only real problem with it is the duration. I think if I had a couple of extra spins, I could have gone a full roll in, and I've heard that same sentiment echoed by other people. But I don't know, maybe I'm just being a little salty. Up next is Fire Drill, the other D-ticket of the world. From what I gathered, this ride is just you participating in some petty sibling rivalry, which I think is pretty funny. It's a pretty simple boat ride where you sail around with water guns, and depending on the target you hit, you'll either earn points or be sprayed with water. This ride is really fun, and I imagine having a whole party fill up 1 or more boats could be a blast. And to give some credit to Universal here, having a water ride where you choose how wet you want to get was a very smart move for Orlando. After that is another great ride, and Isle of Berk's headline attraction, Hiccup's Wing Gliders. For most of this ride I had just a massive smile across my face. I know I've used this word a lot already, but this ride is so much fun. In this attraction you're placed in some sort of flying machine and launched throughout the Isle by this great toothless animatronic. You then fly through the land, including over the water, which again is just so much fun, and then you slow down in a dragon's nest. And this right here was my favorite part of any ride. You attempt to launch out but don't quite make it over the hill, and when you fall back down, the eggs have hatched and these adorable little dragons start flying out. You then quickly move into a surprisingly forceful launch, which sends you flying into a slightly more intense track layout with some near misses with structures above you before you make it back to the ride station. This ride is fantastic, potentially even my favorite coaster in the park, if I'm including theming obviously, and a geniusly designed beginner coaster for younger kids. If you want something to make a kid really fall in love with roller coasters, this is it. This ride looks pretty light approaching it. You see it gliding across the land and going over water, sure, but that looks more fun than it does intimidating. And the more intense portions of this ride are hidden out of sight of non-riders and behind these pretty cute dragon animatronics. Both the launches in this ride are extremely obvious, but the show moments with cute dragons stop the suspense from growing too much. Even if you're being sent into a pretty intense launch and you miss, the excitement of seeing those baby dragons will help turn what might be a bit of a scary experience for young kids into a joyful one. I can't recommend this attraction more. It is a must-do if you visit the park. Don't miss it. Before we move on, I also want to quickly mention the Untrainable Dragon. To be fair to this attraction, my opinion of it is a little skewed because the whole time I was waiting for Hiccup and Toothless to fire with the audience, and they just never did. When I viewed it, they must have been running in some sort of B mode, or they just completely filled the theater with smoke, because I couldn't see him at all. Besides that though, the show has some fun music and cool puppets. It's good, but nothing special. Moving on to the next world, you have Universal's 3rd Harry Potter land, the Ministry of Magic. Walking into this land was another magical moment. This land looks excellent, and those buildings are just so tall. I spent some time just staring at those balloons because, man, are they huge. And again, this lane looks great. It is stunning. I'm willing to ignore dining for the most part, but I do want to bring up this cafe I ate in because it was just beautiful. Just amazing. The lane also feels real though too. I was waiting outside the bathrooms this one time, and they had these super realistic looking posters pasted on the wall. They also have a refillable water bottle station there, just like they do across the park, which may be one of the greatest additions to theme parks ever. But back on topic, the whole lane just feels real, like I'm visiting the actual Paris. This world has another show, the Cirque Arcanus. This show follows the ringleader's assistant trying to protect the magical creatures from being abused in the circus. It's another pretty decent show with more great puppets. I really like how this show starts as an immersive experience, where you are a player in the story, but then seamlessly blends into a more traditional stage show with a fourth wall, allowing the audience to be a character when it makes sense for the story, and not be when it wouldn't make sense for them to be. The main attraction in this land though is obviously the battle at the Ministry. The basic story of this ride is that Dolores Umbridge escapes right before her trial, and the gang has to catch her. This attraction has received a lot of attention. It had a 500-minute wait on opening day, and I don't think I ever saw it go below 90 minutes during my trip, but, while this may be controversial, I didn't really like it. Let's start with the queue. The Metro Flu effect is pretty cool, and that huge room you enter after is very impressive. There are also a couple of cool moving picture effects sprinkled throughout, and a cute cat room, but other than that, the queue is so boring. You spend like half an hour just walking through the switchbacks in that main room, and yeah, it's a pretty room, but there's only so much to look at. I've never seen the films, so maybe this room holds more meaning for others, but I would personally rather have a bunch of smaller rooms with more things to look at than just this one huge area. The queue is also sort of misleading. After you go through switchbacks outside and go through the Metro Flu and spend some time waiting in that Ministry hub area, you'd expect to be almost on the ride, but there's still another half hour in the queue. Then the loading station for the ride just kind of appears an hour later. There's not much warning giving or suspense built, you kind of just walk up to it. A pre-show to Berk explain what was going on to those who aren't as familiar with the story, I think would have gone a long way in adding a little bit more to this attraction. I mean, Disney is going to have a pre-show explaining the Big Bang to riders. I don't see why Universal can't explain Harry Potter lore. The ride itself isn't much better. First off, this ride might be one of the most screen-heavy rides I've been on in my life. Aside from a scene at the end featuring some figures, which employs a pretty neat trick for transitioning from the screen to the practical set, and another scene with a ride animatronic, this ride is primarily designed on screens. There are also a couple of pretty incredible Death Eaters animatronics sprinkled around as well, but they're so far away that they pretty much just blend in with the screens. But honestly, the screens don't matter that much because throughout the entire ride you're stuck in a closed box. The whole point of making a dark ride over a simulator is at a set where you have some liberty to look around. Obviously you're stuck in a ride vehicle, and sometimes that ride vehicle will turn and block parts of your vision, like on Haunted Mansion. However, you still have, for the most part, get to choose where you look. A simulator, on the other hand, is a lot more like a movie. I mean, simulators are essentially just movies displayed in theaters that move, and that's what this ride feels like. In the back row especially, your vision is so extremely limited that you're only able to look out through this rectangular vehicle. I do not understand why this ride wasn't just a simulator. Honestly, the ride might have been better. It definitely would have been cheaper. If it were a simulator, I think it would have been able to incorporate a lot more physical thrill, which definitely would have improved it. This ride isn't bad, it does an incredible job blending sets and screens, but it all feels inane. It is by far the worst of the 4 major Harry Potter attractions, and my least favorite ride at the park. Real quick, before the video continues, if you're enjoying it so far, it would mean a lot if you could check out the rest of this channel and consider subscribing. If you're interested in theme parks, you might want to consider my Epcot video from last year, where I explore and discuss the attractions of Epcot Center in the 80s. It's part of my wider Bit the Bot web series, where I combine this commentary style format with serialized animated segments. If that interests you, check it out. Alright, before we head over to Dark Universe, I want to talk about Celestial Park. Of all the areas in this park, it is by far my favorite to be in. I really love the style of everything in this land. The mix of Victorian style architecture and sci-fi and space elements is gorgeous, and I love all the water features. There's also plenty of entertainment and food options, from the airtime machine that has Stardust Racers, to the carousel, to the live music performances, to pizza at Pizza Moon. There is so much to do here. One of my favorite moments at the park was listening to this band play while the fountains were in full swing, and I was enjoying some ice cream. It's just such a nice place to relax, and while it does need more shade, it's still very peaceful. It's also incredibly easy to navigate. As long as you have an idea of where each world is, any path that goes in that general direction will take you to it fairly quickly. Going back to Stardust Racers, while it's not nearly as good as Velocicoaster, it's still a thrilling and pretty ride. The airtime on it is the best I've gone on any coaster ever. The carousel is fun. That's all I really have to say about it. Up next we have Dark Universe. This is the world I was excited about going in, but I was pleasantly surprised. In terms of the outside visuals of this land, it's most underwhelming of all the worlds. It's very dark, and while it does have a few examples of some lively moments, like at the Burning Blade Tavern, for the most part, this land feels very dead, which I guess could be the point. But where this land excels is with its rides. Let's start with Curse of the Werewolf. This attraction is a pretty fun spinning coaster. The stalling and multiple launches are pretty entertaining, and the theming is great. My only real criticism is at the end, where you have this faux shop looking banner that just does not fit with the vibe of this ride, and the static figure that really should be an animatronic. This ride is not anything special, but it's a fun time for sure. The real star of this land, and really the whole park, is Monsters Unchained. This attraction is possibly my favorite dark ride ever. It geniusly uses the Kuka arm ride system, animatronics, and screens to create a thrilling and engaging experience. In a nutshell, this attraction follows Victoria Frankenstein and her assistant Ygor, taking you through a tour of the Frankenstein Manor where they contain some of Universal's most famous monsters. However, during the tour, the monsters, led by Dracula, revolt, and Frankenstein and Ygor must defeat them. First of all, this story is excellent. In just a couple of pre-shows and a maybe 4-minute ride, I was hooked on these characters and lore. If this is what the Dark Universe franchise was going to be, it's an absolute shame that it never got made. One thing I want to highlight about this attraction is just how immersive it is. Unlike Ministry, where you're in an isolated box, here you're being swung around through environments with animatronics reaching out at you. Here you can feel the heat of flames leaping up and water being sprayed at you. Never before have I felt so immersed during a ride, but here I felt like an actual character in the story where my existence was genuinely important in a way that made sense. Now this ride does utilize screens, but does so in a way that makes sense, and when they're used, they're integrated expertly with the physical world. For example, they might use a screen in the background, but then have an animatronic come out in front of it, or maybe they show a character getting shocked and shake the ride vehicle to represent the electricity. These are all great examples of how screens can be used in the ride to help bridge the digital and physical worlds. And in every scene they're used, it wouldn't really make any sense to have made those scenes with sets, and sometimes it wouldn't have even been possible. The screens are not replacing physical sets, but rather enhancing the experience. I would like to mention though, that I did notice some occasional bugs with the screens, both during my own ride experiences and when watching ride-throughs, where they would reset before they are out of view. It didn't happen every time, but this is definitely something that Universal needs to work on. This ride was just a blast to go on. It was actually the only ride that I went on multiple times during my trip. It is by far the greatest attraction in this park, a very serious contender for greatest attraction of all time, and a must-do for any visitor. Finally, we've reached Super Nintendo World. Now before we dive into the land itself, I would like to say that while I did buy one, I never really got the chance to try out any of the features with the interactive power-up bands. They look like a fun time though, and I'll have to try them out on my next visit. With that out of the way though, I want to acknowledge just how good this land looks. Nintendo has a unique style that is perfectly captured here. It does feel like you're walking to the property in a way that no land rivals. I love all the moving figures across the land and just how lively this place feels. Let's start with Minecart Madness and the Donkey Kong section of this world. This ride is fine. The fake track effect just does not work for me, and presumably due to limitations to the ride system, this attraction feels very slow and rough. It also just feels random, the pacing is off, and things just kind of happen. It's not a bad ride and does have some charm, but considering the wait times it has been reaching, I don't think it's worth it. Going back to Mushroom Kingdom, up next we have Yoshi's Adventure. This ride is adorable. This land is just so fun to look at, and it was just a great idea to incorporate a slow-moving people-like attraction into it. The egg hunt feature is a little gimmicky, and I'm not sure how much fun it will be on re-rides, but made my first ride through a little bit more engaging. My one real complaint is how short it is. I think it could have been a lot longer and told a little bit more of a story, but a ride being too short is probably the best compliment a ride can get. It's a fun time, not a must ride, but if you have time, you should check it out. The last ride in this park to talk about is Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. I've been excited for this attraction for years. The AR technology just intrigued me, so I was looking forward to checking this one out. And it didn't disappoint. The AR works quite well, and while it sometimes tries to do a little bit more than it's capable of, it adds a lot to this attraction. There were a few moments where they should have used animatronics instead of AR, but really I'm nitpicking. When the AR is showing racers and items on the track, it works great. Beyond the AR, this ride is just fun, the sets are cool, and while it's not the most thrilling attraction, it's not trying to be. It does a great job of being exactly what it wants to be, a fun, interactive dark ride for families. And we've reached the end of our journey. Epic Universe is sort of a weird park. It's a park built in Orlando that doesn't seem at all prepared for its weather. Its best ride often has one of its shortest wait times, and its worst ride often has its longest. It's an incredibly immersive park that frequently embraces its immersion with lazy sightlines. It is not a perfect park, but it's definitely not a bad one either. What this park really does is make you feel in a way that most parks can't often achieve. It is cute, thrilling, relaxing, epic. See what I did there? So let's decide, is this the best park in Orlando? Yes. This park has 3 of the most incredible rides in Orlando, 2 fantastic shows, and some amazing theming. There is something for everyone here, and while the Magic Kingdom might be better for families with small children, you still be able to entertain anyone of any age here. Everything here feels new and relevant, because obviously it just opened. Not everything works perfectly, but it doesn't feel like it's falling apart like other parks do. The food is excellent, and there are numerous great options available everywhere. The layout is straightforward to navigate, and the park size feels manageable. It's not easily the best park in Orlando, but when I reflect on which parks I enjoyed the most, which I'm most eager to revisit, and which I'd be most likely to recommend, this is it.